Namaste and welcome to Dr. Madan Meena ji. And it's such a pleasure for us at the Center for Embodied Knowledge to collaborate with you on your wonderful project of conserving, documenting, and preserving the block printing traditions of the Marwar region. And without much ado, could you tell us about this particular project? Is it a culmination of three other regions? And what is the urgency in preserving the block printing practices of this region?
Yeah. So, Aparna, block prints has been one of my subject of interest and study since last 15 years. And I started mapping these basically designs through these blocks, through these text designs which were printed on textile, because that speaks a lot about our design history. If we talk about design history, then it talks about that. So initially, I remember that from my own native village, which is in Savai Madhopur district. So I have always heard from my mother that the cheapies used to come and supply cloth there. That means the block printed cloth was supplied by these printers, which who were just scattered all around the villages, or maybe they were living in small towns. So at one time, what happened that I think it was a time when my grandfather passed away, and I was to live in my village for 12 days. So I went around to find these cheapies and cheapas. In north of Rajasthan, they are called cheapies, and other part west and central, and then south they are called cheapas. So I went around and found that the cheapas were still, some of them were still alive, uh, who practice printing. Many have already died, but I was able to find those blocks actually. So the design in the blocks interested me a lot, and then I started surveying various centers. So in last 15 years, I should say that 60 centers I have documented, because I found that these designs are very important of our design history part of how design has existed or has evolved, for particularly in context of textile. Though design exists in architecture also, design exists in paintings also, design exists in other material culture also, but yeah, textile has been something very important also. And then you know
Sorry.
the whole history, how these were then reproduced in Manchester, and then how the block printing industry in India completely collapsed also, no? So I think it was important to me. Then slowly what I started was can we reprint these designs? Because the blocks which I collected were quite old, matlab they were from 50 to 100 years old. Some are as old as 200-year old also. So my effort was, can we exercise,
Sorry.
where could we reprint them also? So I found some of the printers, tried to work out with them if these designs could be printed also. So in that case, I came in contact with a block art, because when you want to do a block printing, then first thing is that you need a block carver who can actually carve those blocks. So then I found these block carvers in Jaipur, because I was looking for the traditional block carvers who has been doing it traditionally for more than 50 years. So then I found that these were the Multani block carvers. Still, the families are still there in Jaipur. Earlier, they were in Sanganer. So then another new history came up about this block carving from these block carvers. Then, being in Jaipur, the whole history of Sanganer prints came up, because Sanganer prints were such prints which were patronized by the royal family of Jaipur. When Jaipur was established some more than 250 years ago, these printers were settled in Sanganer, and over there they were given a land, and then their prints were used by the royal families, and that's how we find the most refined printing being done in Sanganer also. So then I did the whole another history opened up in Sanganer also. So there I started, can this Sanganer prints could be revived again, because what is happening presently in Sanganer, if you see, everything is being printed either through chemical dyes in block print or in screen print. There is no shy beggar, the traditional dyes which are used in Sanganer on white bleached cloth. That kind of printing is completely gone in Sanganer. So I thought, let us see. This has been a very thriving center, and it was being done here till 1980s. The block printing was very much done in natural dyes in Sanganer. So there are chances of its revival in Sanganer. So I started with Sanganer, which is almost 2 years now, and I've been able to achieve at least 15 replicas of the old pieces which I collected from the antique dealers, which are these cloth pieces some 100-year old, and those has been exactly replicated. So over here, my relationship with the block hours, Multani block hours, with the cheapas all around Rajasthan now, I can say, which is north of Rajasthan and east of Rajasthan and central Rajasthan, is established, and I've been able to document these various designs. Now, one part which was remaining belongs to the non-cheaper printers. So that is the Khatri printers. Now, with the Khatri printers, the whole design changes because this is entirely a different region. There is no exchange between the cheapas and the Khatris. We do not find any exchange of any designs or any kinds of a relationship in the whole business of block printing. So I found that when I was working in Badmer with the Azrak print, with this famous national awardee printer Ranamal Khatri, very eminent and knowledgeable person. So in his workshop, I was able to discover some pieces, swatches of Badmer prints. His family is known for Azrak print because his family came from Sindh with 1947 with the partition, and when they came, they brought Azrak block printing in Badmer. Otherwise, Badmer was not doing Azrak at all. It was doing Badmer print, which is a huge range of block prints. So I've always been talking to Ranamal Khatri about these non-Azrak prints. That means the Badmer prints that was being done in Badmer before his family arrived. And one day I was able to see these swatches with the old printers who were working in his workshop because they gave up those Badmi print and picked up this Azrak printing because there's a big demand for Azrak in the market. Still, we see there's a lot of demand, and people completely forgot Badmi prints. So this discussion has been happening with Ranamal for almost 5 years that can we revive this Badmi prints. Now recently, while working with this another project of mine, which is about the desert pottery, and I've been going around various villages in this region, and simultaneously I have come across some of the Khatri families also, which are scattered all across desert. I mean, they are in villages of Badmer, Jaisalmer, Jodhpur, Nagaur, and even Bikaner also. And these are Hindu Khatri families. है ना? If you see Kutch has a Muslim Khatri families. They have a different tradition of printing, which is majorly Azrak and few other prints also. But over here, the case is of the Hindu Khatris, which were supplying printing cloth for the local communities like Meghwals, Jat, Mali, Bhil, Sindhi Muslims over there living there. Like that, there are various communities for which they were doing this specific block print to cater to these communities. And then I found that the small towns in this desert part, which were ruled by the Rajputs in this region, the Rajput always used to have one or two families of Khatri for their own consumption. Mean there are legendary stories where the Khatri family has been demanded in the dowry. When the girl is being married, the boy side has demanded to send a Khatri family along with the girl. So we see that all these thikanas, we call them thikanas, means small states which are scattered all across desert in Rajasthan. There must be more than 50 small thikanas. If we uh, compare these big states like has been one royal state, and Jodhpur is another, and Badmer is another, Jaisalmer, and then Bikaner, like that. And then there are small thikanas. So all the thikanas had at one time these Khatris. Now my question is what these Khatris were doing there. So they were doing two jobs. One was a printing, and another was dyeing. Because dyeing was very important for plain dyeing or for yarn dyeing also. Like the weavers were there, so the weavers used to have to get their yarn dyed from these Khatris. So they were doing yarn dyeing also. We have another tradition of bandage. So in bandage also dyeing is important. So these Khatris were dyeing, they were doing this bandage also. And then the block printing. For the block printing also they were dyeing. So this portion is just I just thought that it is very important to document this particular region which is left out because I've never been able to approach. My location has been always east of Rajasthan and west Rajasthan. This means a distance of 600 to 700 kilometers. So I found that there are only printers now left in Badmer, one or two families, one family in Balotra, which is in Jodhpur district, and two families, two or three families more in Pipad, who are still doing block prints. But they are doing limited block prints, and what they are doing, they are producing to the market demand. So they are doing modern prints, not exactly the traditional prints. So if these people are gone, then the whole knowledge of traditional print will be gone. Because what has happened in the modern prints, people have reduced the steps, people have reduced, they've made shortcuts, and and they are just doing simple, very simple printing, like they are just registering with dabu, which is clay, and they are just dyeing it simply with indigo and sending in the market. Whereas these traditional prints require at least 5 to 7 to 8 to even 10 steps also of printing. So that knowledge will get lost if these people are no more. So I found that it is very urgent to document, to first research this, and then the next stage we can try how we can revive this whole tradition, at least some of the prints which could be revived. And then if there are more chances, we can come up with a publication where the publication have actual swatches, actual designs which were once printed. Now the printing has completely gone. We can say, uh, in present time, some 2 dozen prints are still exist, which are being done in Pipar, in Balotra, and in Badmer. And you can say that total number of print that I'm imagining to document and I'm imagining to come up with this project are more than 300 designs. So those has to be documented, and this is the project.
Fantastic. In one of the reels, you say, जो कच नहीं देखा है वो कुछ नहीं देखा है. So all the motifs seem to be inspired, one from the landscape, from nature, from the people, the community. So could you tell us about the inspiration for these motifs, and what are we losing by not continuing with that tradition, with that inspiration and their connect with the land?
Hmm. So recently, I've been to Kutch, where I'm taking an exhibition by this old lady, Elizabeth Simpson. She's 95 now, and she documented block prints in Rajasthan, which is West Rajasthan, and then in Kutch. Now I see that there's a lot of print which exists, which she has photographed in that, and there's a very much similarity between Kutch and this west of Rajasthan, because culturally it is a similar zone. If we can categorize it ethno-geographically, it's not very much different. Like suppose if Jalore, which comes in Rajasthan, and Kutch, which comes in Gujarat, if you compare both, and there also the same Khatris are there. I mean, not just the Muslim Khatri, the Hindu Khatris are also there. So this time when I went to Kutch, I met this Mansukh Bhai, who is working at Khamir. He's a Hindu Brahmkshatriya Khatri, same as Ranamal Khatri, same community. And I found, because I have been interested to see non-Azrak prints, because the non-Azrak print has been completely forgotten. So at the same time, like I'm finding interest in Rajasthan, so similarly my interest is also to find in Kutch also. So when I met Mansukh Bhai, he showed me some 100 years old blocks, and I was so surprised. Surprised for the reason that these block print also exist in Rajasthan. So that was my new learning, that this region has a connection, you know? Because when you go to Disa, which is also on the borders of Rajasthan and Gujarat, in Disa the two families are still active. They are doing block print. They are Khatri families. I met them also. So there the block printing is existed. But before this region, before 50 years ago, like Bela, there have been many various other centers in Kutch which were doing block printing. Now we know only Azrakpur and Dhamadka in Kutch, which are majorly known for their this Azrak prints, you know. But apart from that, non-Azrak prints were done, because Azrak is only meant for male. What about the women? There must be some people who were doing prints for women also. No, Azrak is only for the males. So these were the prints which were being done for the women. And now what you are asking, what if we lost this? You know, these prints has been very much specific to the caste and community identities. Particular print always identified a community, that this is the community which wears this and this print. That is the reason that we see the huge range of prints. Like at one time I was documenting this center, called Samdadi, which is 100 kilometers from Jodhpur. So Samdadi was a place which was only printing odhnas for the women, and printing 100 varieties of odhnas, which were being sold as far as in Gujarat also, not just Rajasthan, but as far as Gujarat. And in that I see that these 100, why is there so many 100 designs? Because they were meant for different communities, and within the community also a different odhna is, like if the girl is unmarried, there is a different odhna. If she is married, is a different odhna. If her son is married, the odhna changes. If she becomes a widow, a different odhna. And even if the woman want to remarry, big surprise for me that there was odhna. If the women want to remarry, there was odhna even for that also. So you see, if one community, if we are seeing five varieties of odna, then you just imagine 10 communities or 15 communities or 20 communities, how many big varieties of these odnas exist, you know, for the women. Same is for the skirt, same is for other things also, for bedding and angochas and pagadis and all those things also. So to me, design is an identity actually. It has been a cultural identity, what I talk about. I don't talk about just only the community identity, but there's a lot of cultural history which is there in these designs. And then there's a whole another subject, how these designs has evolved. Matlab, whether these are botanical studies, whether these are minimalistic studies, whether these are abstraction of the environmental elements that they see, that is another whole subject of design theory if we apply that to these designs. So I find lot many things in this, not just the design aspect, no, but there is a whole cultural history which is there in these designs, and through that we get to know the communities, we get to know the culture, we get to know the history of the place.
So, as a documenter, what is your main reason for this passion? And of course, you're from this land, and you probably have an ancestral connect. But why particularly textiles?
Textile, see, how this passion started in textile. If I go back to this, then it was in 90s, or even after 2005. I was working for a museum in Jodhpur, which was conceptualized by by late Komal Kothari. And there in his library, I had, for the first time, I had seen beautiful block prints, which he had used for book covers, because he was co-founder of Rupa and Sasta in Borunda, where they put up a press in 1960s, and they were publishing books and magazines from that center. And nearby the center is Peepad. It is at a distance of 25-30 kilometers. So they were using this Peepad textile and doing this book covers of this. So I found those fabulous prints, and then I discovered where the center is, from where they were getting these prints. So that time the Rupan Sanstan's whole library had shifted to Jodhpur, and I was in Jodhpur to do his museum. He made me the curator of his museum. The idea that he conceptualized was a museum of brooms. So for that brooms museum study, I sourced these prints from Jodhpur market. There was an old dealer who was still selling those prints, and from that I also designed some publications for the broom exhibition. Like there was a whole catalog which has those covers. You know, there were some boxes which made for the grasses, to keep the grasses. So I used those prints from that, and from then onward my interest in block print started. And then I discovered while coming to Jaipur, Bagru, that there's a whole block printing that flourish industry that flourish over there. And then my assignment to teach crafts at Indian Institute of Craft and Design, that was a time when I started learning, really learning into block print and other craft editions also. And then I was fan of textile, to buy textile from Anoki. So Anoki has also produced books. So I got these books of Balotra, of Sanganer, and that slowly my interest grew. And then I started documenting these block printing centers, which I found that this is very important, because when I looked into the earlier documentation or publication, I did not find names of these centers which I documented. So I thought that I may be the last person to document this if I am gone, or maybe if these people are gone, who are there, who are still alive, these block printers, then there will be no history left. So I felt that this is very urgent. Let us do this. This is very important. So that's how it all started. But for me, just documenting is just not the only aim. My aim is whether we can revive this also, because in the process of revival you learn a lot of things which you do not learn only as a documenter. As a documenter, you can just see the, okay, this is design, this is a technique which has been done, but the nuances of this, like in Sanganer, what I am finding while working with this revival project of Sanganer, that one design has been printed in 10 number of ways. Matlab, the block carver has has either copied a design, but he has shown his impression, his identity also in the same block. So he has made some changes in it. Same has been in the print also. So to show their excellence, matlab, the design is standard one design, but there are various variations that you see in it. Similarly, the intricacy of the block. You just by photographing a design or just looking at the block, you'll not see how that intricacy has come unless until you get it made actually. Then you see that for this particular block you require such and such kind of a wood. That wood is no more available. And then there are so many discoveries that happen which doesn't which will not happen if you're only documenting it. So I think the process of revival, you learn a lot. So that is my learning, that is how my way of documenting things, whether textile or there has been other things also. Like I have also document oral traditions, and there also the effort of revival of those oral traditions is always there.
You mentioned, I saw in one post you mentioned that, like you said, some of the wood is not available of these olden blocks, but also the tools which you need to make these blocks. And you say in the block, the one side, the top is of represents the community, the back, the artisan. The side you get to know about how intricate the design is, and if we do not have the tools and the material, and if the art tradition is lost, reviving it, who would be the who would be the people who take this forward? If the legacy is recreated, are we going to retrain people? How do we continue this tradition?
Yeah. So you're talking about tools first. So yeah, there is a limitations of tool that we see today, because the most intricate blocks of Sanganer that I have seen are very small blocks, just 2 inches, 3 inches block. And the wood that was used was a Gurjan wood. Now that wood is only in the forest of Ranthambore Wildlife Sanctuary, which is a restricted area now. Earlier, the wood was there in the territorial area also. The forest department used to auction that wood, and these people used to get their supply. That was from Savai Madhopur, from Bara district, from Kota. They used to get this wood, the dead wood, that the forest department used to collect. But now that system is closed down, so this community is not getting access to this wood. So they shifted to shisham and sagwan, which is a teak, and then roida, all these. Now in that you cannot go deeper. It was easy to go deeper in Gurjan wood because it was softer than these other woods, and it has a very fine grain also to hold that intricacy of the block. So these limitations are there, but still you can try to use similar woods, uh, with the same set of artisans. You have to compromise that if the depth is 2 inches, you might have to just get 1 inch only, not more than that. That you have to compromise. But yeah, for the for the revival of this, I think the effort has to be made. Now coming to that, who will own this? Suppose if we are able to revive few things which is only with a particular set of one or two printer, maybe one or two block carvers. Like I am working with two block carver families for the Sanganer project, and there are three families who are block printer families. So there are five families which are helping in this project. Now, if we think that how it becomes a part of the mainstream market now, what you think that how it becomes sustainable also. Now you cannot do a bulk production. That is something that we need to understand. This block printing was never meant for bulk production. There were printers, two, three printers in every village, which were just catering to the local supply. And earlier people were not buying in bulk. Like today we have dresses, you can say 15, 20, 50 pieces. Earlier, if you see in the villages, hardly people were able to afford two or three pair of clothes. So you can see the consumption was limited consumption. So if you think from the perspective of mass production, then that is really not possible. That should not be the way also for surviving these traditions. What I feel is to validate them, give them respect. That is something which is very important. To give them respect also means to pay them well, because if the prints are intricate, they will take time. You need to have a patience. Like this year, it has rained heavily in Rajasthan. It's almost for 4 months it has been raining. So no production has happened for me for last 4 months. Now if an industry comes into this scene, they will not wait. They will throw you out of this whole business. Ki you can't deliver in 4 months, then we are not going to work with you. So those cases need to understand only small productions can happen. So people who have that kind of a understanding, like the slow fashion is coming into it, people are now trying to understand this. Those kind of enterprises could work with these people. And what I'm telling you that the block printing centers which has closed down, we need to revive them, not just in Balotra, Pipad, which are already saturated.
Mm.
The places where block printing has stopped, where resources are still available, where people could be retrained because the community is there. The chipas are still there in those villages, the families are still there, and there's a lot of unemployment that we see. So if we are able to work with these people, I think we should plan to revive those centers. That is what I feel.
Mm. So, as a last question for this conversation, sir, in terms of development of India as a whole, where the government is talking about Viksit Bharat. So, when we talk about artistic traditions, whether it is oral or textiles or even pottery crafts, any of our crafts, what is the role that how do living traditions, how do we keep them alive and relevant for modern times? As we know, people are not really particular about what they purchase, whether it's bulk or mass or individual, specific. So how in a changing India, how do we make these traditions important and bring them to the fore?
So the foremost thing, most important thing is education now, because the kind of education that we are getting, which is a degree education, what I call actually, and which is creating a lot of unemployment. We do not have a space for our traditional knowledge anywhere in our education system. It is very recently that the new education policy advocates for this, for inclusion of the traditional wisdom and knowledge that is there. But how we are actually doing it, how we are actually bringing it into the mainstream education. So I think education is one thing. Then sensitization, which is very important, because now environment is becoming a big concern for everyone. We all know, and we all facing this crisis. So this is the solution over here. The solution has existed already, but we damaged it in the process of industrialization or urbanization. We were the people who damaged that. So I think this there is a lot to learn from these traditions, and education is one thing which always feel that we need to educate people, and this education should start right from the primary level, not just in the college or later levels. And then our design education, which I feel about, because our all design education is very much based on the Western pedagogy, which is really very sad. It is all based on industrial design theory. You know? We have never been like the industrial designers actually. We have been indigenous designers, if you talk about it.
Mm.
That has sustained life in India for so many years. We are such rich civilizations. Like we talk of Indus Valley civilization, the first urban civilization. How developed? Matlab, fantastic. If we come to later period, Gandhara and Kushan period, what a kind of art that we see. You know? So what I feel that we have been a Viksit Bharat, सोने की चिड़िया देश रहा है पहले से. We all know that very well. We only need to go back into our roots, understand that, and carry it forward in the modern context. In the modern context, we all understand, we all are well educated, we all are well aware. We are seeing the crisis situation also. We have faced the COVID also. I think we are the most educated society now, but we need to understand. We have to be sensible towards. Then these craft will definitely they will find their place automatically. Means
Thank you so much.